Good evening. Welcome to Athens City Council. Tonight is a council meeting dealing with ordinances, and we will begin this evening by establishing a quorum, which it looks like all council members are present, so that is our quorum. First thing we need to do is dispose of a set of minutes. The regular session of City Council, which was held on October 21st, 2013. Could I have a motion to accept that set of minutes?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the minutes of the meeting from October 21st, 2013, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. These minutes are accepted. I don't have any communications. I will say now, and then I'll remind everybody at the end of the meeting, that next week is Monday is a holiday, national holiday, Veterans Day, so we will not be meeting. Council meeting will be on Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock. I don't have any other communications, any but council members? Okay. Mayor Weil?
To reiterate, next Monday's Veterans Day. City offices will be closed. There's no trash or recycling delay. So you just put it out this regular day that you have. So we're also, we parade uptown, I believe, Veterans Day, with the intent of being at 11 o'clock at the monument on East Green. It's also Election Day tomorrow, and the other thing I want to mention is that our Reserve Officer David Malawisto of the Police Department won an award for the CIT training from the Attorney General. It's the, let's see, it's called the Evelyn Lundberg Stratton CIT Champion Award of the Year. Essentially, he's been the one who kind of spearheads our crisis intervention training, and he's done a good job of it for many years, and he was obviously acknowledged for it. So I just want to bring that up in passing.
Very good.
And that's all I really have.
Okay. Auditor Heck?
Thank you. Just a quick update on our CCA program. We're gearing up and, of course, reviewing the letters that will go out before they go. This will be the final notice asking people to comply. They will have 30 days. After that, they will get an assessment letter saying you owe us a certain amount of money, which will be our tax rate times their income based on their federal tax returns. So that's where we are on that. Also, some of you know, most of you know, that our income tax administrator, Tina, has been working very hard over this issue of tax uniformity, the HB5 bill that's going on right now. She testified last Wednesday, was very successful. She did a great job. However, the sub-bill, this is about the 6th iteration of a bill that's been presented, is the one they're trying to move forward. The coalition, they call it, which is spearheaded by the OML and tax administrators like Tina, have about 6 pages of issues with the language in this current bill. So I can only hope that Wednesday, we're expecting a vote this Wednesday. They're going to have hearings tomorrow and Wednesday and probably a vote. Hopefully there will be some amendments to the bill as it stands. They took a 27-page tax law and turned it into a 140-page bill, which, yeah, is it's very difficult. And so anyway, I guess we'll keep you posted. Tina, Laura Kreider, Deputy Auditor, and I plan to be there, since Laura and I will be in Columbus anyway for a Finance Officers Conference, and so we'll keep you posted, let you know. Yeah, we're a little bit worried. We feel we stand to lose $100,000 minimum based on the net operating loss. Some administrative policies they have about certified mail, which costs $5 or $6 every time we mail one of those. It'd be like $20,000. And the 20-day rule, most of you are probably aware that we have a 12-day rule. If you work up to 12 days in the city, you don't have to pay our taxes. if you work over that, then you do pay, and it also goes back to day one. And so they have picked 20 days, which is actually a month of time to work in the city, and you're exempt from paying taxes for those 20 days rather than going back and paying. And so we expect about $30,000 to $40,000 loss on that. So that puts us over $100,000 right there, plus some of the other things that are in
Auditor
there.
Heck, can you explain why that 20 days is an important, that change, why we would lose on that? Just talk about the kind of workers that would be.
Well, that is an issue for Athens, and that's part of the problem, and one of the questions Tina had on Wednesday when she was testifying is Athens, as you know, it's a small city, and so all these construction companies that you see, whether they're on campus, on our city streets, are not based in the city of Athens, and they are here for quite a few days, and yeah, there's a lot of people that contract and come into the city of Athens to work. There are people from Albany that come in and work doing lawn care in Athens, and so for the time that they put in, you know, the majority of their work, I mean, I don't know. This is my opinion, that someone who has a lawn care business in Albany probably gets more business in Athens than they do Albany, and that's where they make the majority of their money. And so, because we are a small city and limited businesses coming from, you know, all over the state to work, it would be a big issue for us. It's not like Columbus, where most of them live in Athens or have their business in Athens anyway. So.
I mean, in Franklin County.
Franklin County,
Yeah.
there you go. It's a big, it would be a big issue for us, and that's why, and of course, just so you know, the coalition, as I said, has been willing to compromise on a lot of these issues, and the 20-day rule is one of them. However, we don't want them to be exempt from paying taxes if they're here for 30 days. You know, it should be, if they're here that long, then they should be paying our taxes. So that's just an example of, and the net operating loss forward, we don't have one here. Some cities do, Columbus doesn't. They stand to lose a lot more money than we do on that, but, you know, the compromise, you know, would be a phase-in or options for the businesses to how they take it and things like that. And so we've tried to present a lot of, you know, options and compromises, and haven't seemed to have gotten very far. So I'll let you know what happens after Wednesday.
Well, I felt reading the testimony that she was giving that she really had a very serious grasp of what the issues were financially.
She does, and she had a
And-
lot of comments about that because she, yes.
She had the
Tina's-
detail, which is what people need
She
to hear.
does. She figured out how to manipulate our system and find some of these figures, because we don't typically track some of the numbers
Right.
that they're asking us about. And she's very, very smart and did an excellent job. She knows her job and has a good attitude about it. She's not trying to alienate, you know, our representatives, but let them see where we're coming from down here in southeastern Ohio. It's not just Athens, you know, any area outside of the bigger cities has the same issues
Are going
that
to
we
be
do.
impacted.
Ms. Timberman has testified several times.
She has.
In Columbus on behalf of the city of Athens and even larger areas.
Right.
And has always been accepted.
They keep
very
asking her to
positively.
testify. It's not that she really wants to go running up to Columbus every few weeks, but they ask her to testify, and
If this were adopted, would it be next year, 2014?
as far as I know, I think that's why they're trying to push it through this year,
Sure. Oh, yeah.
so,
So that we have to plan our budget accordingly.
we do.
With up to a loss of $140,000.
Right,
Okay.
right. So that's a discussion for another time, I guess, yes. Thank you.
Law Director Lang?
Nothing for you tonight, Mr. President.
Okay, we're going to move on to ordinances for second reading. Ordinance 12313, an ordinance amending the 2013 appropriation ordinance, introduced by Councilmember Nisley. Ordinance 12413, an ordinance amending Ordinance 9713, authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise and accept bids where necessary and to enter into contracts for the University Estates street improvements, project number 265, and declaring an emergency. Also introduced by Councilmember Nisley.
Mr. President, I move to suspend the rules on ordinance 12413.
Second.
The reason being that this project is nearing completion, and we need to have the correct amount of money appropriated in order to pay the bills.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules on ordinance 12413. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. Member Nisley, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt ordinance 12413.
Second.
And this particular ordinance is an amendment of an ordinance that we passed last year that approved the appropriated money for the university estates repairs. When we first appropriated the money, it was $515,000. The costs ended up being more than that. They ended up being $532,722. So we're amending that original ordinance to reflect the final bill for the university estates repairs.
Comments? Okay. All those in favor of adopting ordinance 12413 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, the ordinance is adopted as it was amended. Ordinance 12713, an ordinance authorizing the auditor to reduce 2013 year-end appropriations, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. We'll move on to ordinance for first reading. Ordinance 12913, an ordinance amending the Athens City Code to replace the terms handicap or handicapped to persons with a disability, and to replace the term handicapped, referring to the accommodation of a facility or parking place, to accessible parking for persons with disabilities. Introduced by Councilmember Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. As was mentioned when I introduced this last week, this is an ordinance that will be updating essentially the terminology that's used, kind of replacing the somewhat archaic, if not pejorative, term of handicap when referring to a person or when referring to an allotted space, to where the terminology will basically be replacing, putting the person forward first and referring to a person as a person with a disability, or if referring to a parking space or access into a building or egress being referred to as accessible parking or accessible ramp or anything of that type in terms of replacing these. There's 4 chapters. I don't know that I need to read through all of the separate changes. It's fairly lengthy, but I will read the chapters. Chapter 3.06, which is employment policies, has several places to, well, one, where the term handicap will be replaced with disability. Chapter 3.07, administrative departments, boards and commissions. Chapter 7.05, which is parking regulations, which probably contains the most changes that'll take place in substituting the term handicap with disability or accessible. And Chapter 35.17, which is a chapter on miscellaneous provisions. Again, there will be a change or two taking place in that particular chapter. I do want to take this moment to kind of let everyone understand what these definitions basically mean for disabilities. This comes straight out of ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, where a disability is a result of a medically defined condition that limits a person's movements, senses, or activities. Whereas handicap, on the other hand, has been used, handicap is a barrier or circumstances that make progress or success difficult, such as an impassable flight of stairs or a negative attitude towards an individual with a disability. So therefore, that's the leading reason for changing the terminology that's used in our code. Again, this is one of many steps in moving forward to make our community a more accessible environment.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. I just want to echo support as we move forward with supporting this legislation. My understanding is that the ADA was passed initially by President Bush Sr., the first one, which is a long time ago. And the person-centered, person-first terminology that I became familiar with during my graduate studies was 10 years ago. So it just makes sense that we're acknowledging person first and to be moving forward with our code book. So I appreciate your efforts and Disabilities Commission for championing this.
Thank you, Member Butler. Anybody else?
Ditto.
Okay, mark that down. Okay. Member Pappy, ditto. Okay. And this is the first reading, so we'll hear this two more times. Ordinance 13013, an ordinance amending the 2013 part-time and seasonal staffing levels and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules on ordinance 130-13.
Second.
Thank you. The reason for the suspension is that these are, that there is money owed based upon the reappropriation that's going to take place with this particular ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion to suspend and a second. So all those in favor of suspending the rules on ordinance 13013 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, Member Patterson, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 130-13.
Second.
Thank you. This ordinance is to make a change in the part-time and seasonal staffing levels, not the levels, but the funding for those positions. This is for our special events, i.e. Halloween, when we bring on the auxiliary. And this year, we had auxiliary come in on Friday and Saturday evening, and therefore, it's to increase by $50 from $300 to $350, and that's to cover the associated benefits as well as taxes for those particular auxiliary officers. This is our mounted auxiliary.
So you know that that's a wage range, and that isn't exactly what we pay them. For years, when we paid them as contract employees, they got a flat amount. So then, for different reasons, we put them on our payroll. And one of them being that we call them back pretty regularly throughout the year. And so we tried to set an amount that so they would get net their same amount, but then have their taxes and things added on to that. And so this allows them to still pay what we've been paying for Saturday night. Saturday nights typically the big nights for, the Spring Fest and all that. But like, Member Patterson said, on Friday night for Halloween weekend, we have them coming in. And so this gives us a little more leeway to pay them for Friday night also, even though it's not as long as hours and all that. But they don't necessarily make quite that much even for 2 nights, but that just covers it. Let's make sure we have enough.
Thank you, Auditor Heck. Did you have something to say?
No, it's just, as Kathy said, it's basically cover they have a straight wage, base wage, and then there's fringe benefits and taxes, and that's where it topped over. And we bring some of them in Friday just in case, because there is an influx of people coming in Friday night for Halloween. In this case, because the weather was cooler, so there wasn't a big deal, but the fact is we want to bring them in just in case there is an early Halloween, let's say. Somebody tries to make it a 2-night event. So.
Okay. We have a motion and a suspension to accept ordinance 13013. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 13113, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of softening salt for the water treatment plant, introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was going to confer with the mayor whether or not this was an emergency or necessary to suspend.
No, this can go through 3
Okay,
readings.
thank you, sir.
This is actually next year's salt. This is for the water softening. But the idea is that we usually start purchasing it at the start of the year, so rather than have to rush in January, this will be in this will be in next year's appropriation. The money will be appropriated in our appropriation omnibus or whatever you want to call it. But this is the authorization of it. Some of the other items fell out of the mix because of the increase of the bid limit from 25,000 to 50,000.
Okay.
So some of the, some of this chlorine and other chemicals really are below 50,000, so that can be,
Done in,
that doesn't have to be put in the authorization
by
ordinance.
council. And,
That answer your question?
yes, no, thank you, Mayor. This is $214,000 that we're looking to expend from the water fund.
One question. Is this type of salt different than, say, the salt you put on the streets? Could they be combined, or?
That's a good question. It's a little bit better quality, but they're pretty close to interchangeable. I think they've actually used one for the other, but I forget which way they go most of the time.
Okay.
But I think
I
it's
feel reassured.
What?
I'm reassured now.
Well, I had a discussion with the previous plant operator, and I know at times I think they've used the softening salt for the roads, but I don't think they've used it the other way around. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you for, I think that was much more reassuring.
It's all NaCl, if that's what you want to know, but the qualities and impurities of it, and there are some impurities of it. I've been on the bid sitting where they sit there and they actually, there's usually two companies coming along, and usually they come with a bid spec in terms of delivered, how much they'll deliver in what quantity, and then they have two little bags of salt inside the thing, usually what kind they have. And they look at it and they shake it and they say, oh, this looks good or not good. There are some things that are insoluble in it, obviously, because it's straight mined. Probably more than you want to know.
It's good to know your salt.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Sea salt's really trendy right now. I have no other comments on this. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to ordinance 13213, an ordinance amending ordinance 1813, Title 45, Historic and Architectural Preservation, Section 45.03, Board Membership, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you, Mr. President. This particular ordinance will change the board membership requirements in 45.03, which is the Historic and Architectural Preservation that establishes the commission. The commission actually asked this of council to change it because they think that it will help it function better. Changing it from 5 to 7 voting members and removing the two non-voting alternates to instead of 5 and 2, now you have 7 and they're all voting. And the rest of the language would be changed as needed.
Are we taking the language out that says alternate?
Yeah, and the numbers.
We just erase the alternate.
Suspend?
This is a new board
Right.
within the city. It's just been set up.
3 months?
So-
How long's it been?
We passed before summer recess.
So, 4 months?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Ordinance 13313, an ordinance authorizing the demolition of the house located at 667 East State Street in front of the community center, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you, Mr. President. This doesn't need suspension.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
And I want to double check the address.
Right.
which was right.
This is be bad. That would be bad. This is the house that's in front of the community center that's over on the side where the solar panels are. It's not where the Convention and Visitor Bureau office is, just so that everybody knows. We had a discussion about this last week. The house is in bad condition. We have indicated how precious and honorable the tree is out in front, and I was looking at some of the words that were used in the bidding and stuff, and I'm happy, because we don't want and I guess if somebody wants to go and say goodbye to the house, to the pine tree that's out in front. But, so this will be done. How soon do you think this will take place?
Good question, don't know.
Okay.
We're reformulating a bid, which is going to be the same, it's not going to change that much, but the idea is to get Restore in there if possible, and then
Right.
the timing of it.
Okay,
I was aware that there's some, the maintenance building to the west of it actually feeds off that meter that is part of the house, so we're
Right.
going to have to do a little plumbing change.
So that's part of the cost of...
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Remind us of the tree.
No other
The
comment.
large pecan tree that's out in front, or on the
Concrete,
side.
which is unique in Athens, as far as I know.
It's the largest tree on East State Street. So, I mean, it's one of the only trees on East State Street.
I planted trees on East State Street.
Yeah, there's just not a whole
She
lot.
means big trees.
Big trees.
Member Patterson.
Are we done with this particular ordinance?
Yes, we are. I can-
Yeah.
If I
that's-
may, could we go back to ordinance 123, I'm sorry, 132-13? Something I was just looking at as this was going through or being introduced anyway, is that when you look down at the memberships, what's indicated on here is that a board member, one member shall serve a 4-year term, 2 shall serve 3, and 2 shall serve 2-year terms, which equals
Probably needs
5.
to
I don't
change.
know if we needed to make a change or to suggest a change to,
Good point.
Oh, well, let's see, one. That's going to have to be put to Paul. I didn't add that up. Good point. So, I mean, unless you just change alternates to 2 shall be appointed to 4-year terms. So that's probably what they would, but I will ask Paul tomorrow.
that would still give you to 6.
That would give us, let's see, 7.
3, I mean, 3 for a 4-year term.
4, yeah.
Okay.
Alternates, so that would be 2 alternates, that would be appointed 4 years. So I will correct that with Paul, make sure it's okay.
Okay.
Just
Now we're
alternates.
at ordinance 134-13, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to redesignate Hocking Athens Perry Community Action HAPCAT as the contract administrator for the Ohio Rural Intercity Bus Program and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are we good with 3 readings on this, or do we need to suspend?
How do we get it done there?
Yes,
We could hold off the second.
I move to suspend.
Second?
This,
Go ahead. We have an ordinance, we have a request to suspend the rules on ordinance 134-13. All those in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, Member Pappy, the rules have been suspended.
thank you. So this, we started with HAPCAP. I think we've been a year now with the new contract, and we're very satisfied with them as the administrator for the Ohio Rural Intercity Bus Program, and we'd like to continue that. For them to be engaged with the state in their funding and their paperwork, we need to have this paperwork in order from council and from our administration. So that's what this ordinance is authorizing.
This one and the following one. The conversation was that the way we have a contract with HAPCAP is really ongoing, but the Department of Transportation says, you know, we want to make sure that, you know, you're really redesignated by act of council. It could be a resolution or an ordinance, but ordinance will work just as well.
Right.
And there was conversation to try and roll both of them together, but since they're 2 different programs, and there might be a time we want to split them off in the future, we may as well keep them
Right.
separate.
Right.
Can one of you explain what the Ohio Rural Intercity Bus Program?
That's the Go
is?
Bus.
Excuse me?
That is the Go
The Go
Bus.
Bus?
Yes.
Which,
It's transportation, it's part of a rural to urban program that started by ODOT probably about 3 years ago, I believe it was. HAPCAP, we picked it up, I think they've been doing it for 3 years now. We applied for it because 2 of the 4 bus routes at that time were going through Athens, one to Cincinnati, one to Columbus. At that time, we had a bus system between Columbus and Athens, but there was an opportunity to add an additional route. The other 2 routes did not intersect with Athens, they came out of Columbus. We did not bid on those. In the process of bidding, we realized that the marketing requirements would be kind of greater than we could actually do in my office, essentially, which would be the marketing, the determination of where the bus stops would be for the new route to Cincinnati. So we started conversations with HAPCAP, who works a rural bus system up, but they actually work a bus system up in Logan. But they felt they could actually do the marketing quite well. As a result, we have a pretty good system right now. We have a bus that runs on $10 one way, and it gets a lot of ridership. It's had some growing pains, but it works pretty well. And as a result, that's why we went to the second one, which is the 135, to actually then pick up the activity of our Athens public transit as well.
So, and didn't they add a route to Marietta as well, isn't there?
Yes, they did. They've been expanding it quite regularly at this point. They've
Right.
yeah, that actually intersects the route, I-77 route that goes, goes up to Cleveland and back down to Charleston. So
Right.
it's working quite well.
It's working very well.
And those buses actually, at the community center, they stop right by this house that
Yeah,
we're going to
that's-
take
yeah,
down, and the pecan tree.
And the pecan tree shades the
Yes.
bus stop right now.
Very good. Okay, so we have suspended the rules, and now we're going to ask for all those in favor of adopting ordinance 134-13 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, the ordinance is adopted. On to ordinance 135-13, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to redesignate Hocking Athens Perry Community Action, HAPCAP, to administer Athens Public Transit, and declaring an emergency. Again, introduced by Councilmember Pappy.
Mr. President, I move to suspend 135-13.
Second.
So we've just, go ahead.
Okay. We have a request to suspend the rules on ordinance 135-13. All those in favor? You have a question?
I do, I just wanted to, I don't know, I think I may have missed it the last time with the previous ordinance, but the reason for the suspension.
Essentially, they're HAPCAP's in the process of reapplying, putting the package together for reapplication for the
The
funds
Department of Transportation.
to the Department of Transportation. At that point, when they're saying, okay, we're submitting a budget for the next year's both bus systems, they say, well, are you still in good with the city of Athens? And do you have any affirmation that that you can actually administer this program of Athens? And that's what this point is. So that the timetable is such that we can get the applications into ODOT in a timely manner. Okay?
Thank you.
And again, really, to my mind, it's a bookkeeping thing, but it's actually, making sure everything, the Ts are crossed and the Is are dotted. And that's what they're saying, okay, it wasn't just me sitting in the office saying, yeah, HAPCAP, you can do it. It's actually you guys following through on it.
Thank you.
So the bottom line is it's a formal document, so it goes into the package that HAPCAP submits to the Department of Transportation.
A signed ordinance, yes. Okay?
Thank you.
All those in favor of suspending the rules on ordinance 135-13 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, Member Pappy, the rules have been suspended.
So I move to adopt 135-13, Mr. President.
Second.
So just to add a few more points to this, HAPCAP, if you've all noticed here recently, we had an increase in ridership, we had a free riding program, we have a very ambitious gentleman who runs the program, Michael Lockman, and you've seen new changes in routes, and there's also been more stops added and more routes. So I would say, from my point of view, as a council person, looking at what the improvements have been over this last year with our public transportation, I'm thrilled. I think they've done a great job and very active with the community, so.
Part of the thing is that they've tried making it work for most people as possible. The institutional route between Richland Avenue to East State Street, where the major student complexes are, to the major shopping areas is one push. The increased frequency without really increasing the cost of operation was good. They have switched from a hail system for the most part, which is why you see so many bus signs out there, because before you could just wave it down, and that was actually impeding the frequency that we're trying to achieve. They have a redundancy of some routes where they have an express route going back and forth. They've extended the hours to the planes, not well enough for some people because, again, it's still later than 8 o'clock, which if you're a working person, you want to get somewhere at 8 o'clock, it would be difficult. we're doing the best we can with our limited resources. That's always been the case. I mean, we could, in theory, if you had unlimited resources, you could make free buses and as many as you wanted, but it's not possible to do. So at this point, I think they'll be coming in within budget. I haven't heard any more requests for extra funds, which is good, because usually about this time in the past few years, I've been coming hat in hand saying we need another 100,000 or something like that. So they're working pretty close to what they need to have. So, and again, there have been bumps in it. We still have, I think, a couple more buses that have to be wrapped, I guess, and a couple more. We're still working out some of the bus shelter and stops in terms of signage and location.
Good organizational effort from that group, in my opinion.
Okay, we have suspended the rules on ordinance 13513. Now, all those in favor of adoption of this ordinance, 13513, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, the ordinance is adopted. We have announcements and other business.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I just wondered if if we could follow up a little bit about our deer discussion last week. I know we've seen quite a bit of information back and forth, but I wondered if you had anything more to share about that.
No, I've just been reading the literature that's been bouncing back and forth, both the survey and some of the, I believe you've got some PDFs in terms of
We did.
various strategies to deal with the deer. So still, we're not. we haven't
It's a
stepped-
work in progress. I think I've had several comments over the week since last week from constituents, and so people are very interested in it. There is something up on the website.
Actually, that whole questionnaire, I did ask, Scott, to take that down momentarily. The feeling is, for me, that we're only addressing it to the people who have a problem with deer, and it's pretty dense verbiage in there. So I'd like to maybe rework it so it's more our ordinance.
And again, I've read the survey there. I don't think I have a copy of it with me here, but part of the dialogue is, okay, are we talking about car accidents? Are we talking about predation of agricultural? If you read the laundry list of things
Sure.
that are there, so some of it doesn't really apply that well. We really don't have that many big accidents in the city. I mean, there have been people who hit deer in the city, but most of the time, if you're going 25 miles an hour, which is the standard fare in the city, it's not a big incidence. What's more, of course, is predation of the ornamentals that we have and the numbers. And
Well,
again,
and there's health risks with
Oh, yes,
the
yes.
continued excrement and
there's
whatever. There are risks
Yeah, well, if
with
there's
the
a high,
amount of deer.
too high density, we'll get the encephalitis that's there. If there's a high density, eventually we might be looking at Lyme disease coming through, because I think
Exactly.
the deer ticks
They
have
carry ticks.
are seen in Ohio now, but they're not seen with Lyme disease at this point, at least the last report I got from Chuck Hammer. So there is a problem there. I mean, it's pretty much, even in the rural areas, the amount of deer are pretty on the high end, because we don't have a predator that's on top, except for the cars and the hunters. And that's will be an issue there. There was a report probably about 2 or 3 years ago in Science magazine that they expect pretty much the ginseng to be wiped out, because it's such a slow grower. There's a ratio too high of deer to the patches that are out there. It's not just the human hunters, it's the deers that like to feed on them too. They expect it to be all almost extinct in 100 years if the deer population kept up. I think they're using West Virginia as a model, but they brought it over to Ohio as a model essay, and that's a minor one.
Well, one of the things that when Mr. Smith, I think,
yeah.
was here last week, and looking at the following email trail, was that he was mentioning that, there's many people here talking about it, and that's one way to also discuss it and believe that there is an issue. It wasn't just car accidents, because you're right, cars mostly only travel at 25 miles an hour on the city streets. So it's true that, yes, it may only be people who say there's a problem, but it seems that a lot of people are talking about it, so, and you see them all over the place.
There are contingent people who think they're quite nice to have in the city, though. So, I mean, there's a certain rustic nature to have these things run through the city
I
streets.
just thought somehow we should be inviting both sides of the issue to respond. So, again, we'll look
Have
at
it-
that and make it our own, and then put it back out there again.
Sounds like another
We-
committee meeting.
I'm sorry?
Sounds like another committee meeting eventually.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Few other announcements. Next Monday, the mayor did mention, next Monday is a federal holiday. It's Veterans Day. Council will be meeting on Tuesday, 7 o'clock. It will be committee nights. Do we have anybody who knows that they need committees to discuss? Yet, at this moment? No?
Oh, no meeting?
I thought you were going to have a committee of the whole.
Oh, I have a note here, yes.
I wasn't sure. I just wondered.
No, we have a request for a committee of the whole to talk about proposal for South Green traffic loop, and particularly with our Mill Street right-of-way, the athletic fields down on that end. So university is looking to redo traffic through that area.
Mr. President, I'm very well aware of that. I'm just, is someone coming to speak to us about that?
I think,
From
think
the
so.
university?
Yes, from the
Okay.
university.
yeah, that's Dave, yeah.
I'm not sure who, but I was told that would be the case.
So we will have that going on. If anybody else has needs for a committee meeting, let the clerk of council know, please. Okay.
Mr. President, I just need to announce that we are having a transportation meeting tomorrow at Courier. The Transportation Committee.
His meeting where?
Courier.
With the Public Works Director.
Okay. What time is that?
10:15.
Okay. Tomorrow is Election Day, and all students are able to vote here. We're certainly able to vote here, and anybody watching this is able to vote. We will be voting on council members, 3 at-large council members, 4 ward council members, a president of council, an Athens city treasurer. Township trustee will have option to vote for 2. There are 4 running. Members of the Athens School Board, we can vote for 3. There are 4 running. And we have some issues on the ballot, electric aggregation, levy for EMS support, and I think there might be some others. But please get out and vote. It's an all-day thing. You can, Joe, what time did you say the polls open? 7? 6:30. I thought it was pretty early, yeah. 6:30 until
7:30.
7:30? 7:30. 7. Yeah. Yeah, sir. Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Opportunity for citizens to speak on any items that were not covered on our agenda. Anybody? No? Then we will adjourn the meeting at 8:44.
It's actually 7:44. 7:44.
Oh, we have to say it?
Corrected by 1 hour.
Okay.